Hey everybody, so welcome back. So I'm at the point now where I've got the hydraulic valve all reassembled and put back together, but I don't have it in the steering column assembly yet because I'm waiting for the special retaining clips that are used to hold the pins in place for that weird coupling where the steering shaft actually couples to the input shaft on the hydraulic valve. So had to special order those from an industrial supplier in the city because nobody had them. Most of the local hardware stores around here have gone to using Midwest Fasteners to be their supplier of all that kind of hardware. So they have the more common external, internal retaining rings or snap rings that you can get, and C-clips, which none of those are going to work in that application. But my supplier in Worcester actually says that, yeah, you know, he looked in the catalog, he found them. Looks like we sized them, so he's got them on order. Hopefully they're going to come in and they're going to work out just fine. If not, I'm going to take the advice of one of the people who commented watching the videos, and they basically said they got away with just safety wire tying it. So you use safety wire, you wrap the wire in the groove, you give it a twist, you run it over, you wrap it around the other groove, you give it another twist, and Bob's your uncle. Probably would work out just fine, but I was being a little persnickety and figured if I can't get the clips, why not wait one more week and get the right clips? In the meantime, I figured I can actually put the valve back in the tractor and hook the hydraulic lines up, and what that'll allow me to do is that'll allow me to restart the tractor. I haven't run this tractor since last year. I mean, really, it was only less than 6 months ago. But remember, we went through a problem with sticking rack, sticking transmission, clutch, all of that stuff. So I'd like to get it running again, just to make sure everything's still moving the way it should. And then that way, when I do get those clips in, I can just put the whole coupler and everything together and the steering column in right here on the tractor. And then the only thing I gotta wait for is the steering wheel, which I'm still working out what I want to do there, because I'm having a heck of a hard time finding an aftermarket steering wheel that is a perfect match for what was on there. So I'm going back and forth between buying a good used steering wheel if I can find one, or, you know, at like a tractor salvage yard, or going with the closest thing I can find to what was on there aftermarket. So we'll see. I haven't made that decision yet, but the steering wheel on this thing was a bugger. Or is a bugger. Well, I hope the dead kitten, that's the small version of a dead cat, which for those of you who aren't into videography, dead cat is the furry thing they stick on the microphone to try and help minimize wind noise. I hope that thing's working overtime today because it's plenty windy out here. So what am I doing today? Well, what I'm doing is I've got my lines disconnected from the cylinder down here, and of course they're already disconnected up at the valve or the valve's location. And my idea is that I brought over the air compressor. I've got no electricity over here in the field, but I've got the tanks pretty full. And what I want to do is I want to use air from the compressor, force air into the lines up there, and blow out whatever fluid is in these lines. Why? Well, because you may recall we had a lot of contaminated fluid in there. I'm trying to get the system as clean as possible so that when I put the new fluid in, the little bit of residual that's left in there will mix with it and it won't make that much of a difference. I'll have fairly clean, fairly water-free fluid, because as anyone will tell you, water is probably one of the biggest enemies of hydraulic systems. You know, I have to admit, actually, this actually looks a lot better than what we had in there before. So, and actually there's a little bit of diesel in there that was in the bottom of this bucket that's mixed into it. But the first time I opened up that hydraulic pump reservoir to change that filter, it was Pepto-Bismol pink, which is an indicator of a high concentration of water in that fluid. So I know a little bit about hydraulic systems. I mean, you know, enough to be dangerous. And something that I find kind of interesting about this system is that there is no bypass valve. I'm not even sure if that's the correct name for it, but basically in hydraulic systems, a lot of times you'll have a valve in there, and the purpose of that valve is that when the pump is building pressure, if, like, say for instance it's a hydraulic cylinder and the hydraulic cylinder reaches the end of its travel, well, now you've got tremendous pressure can build up, and the idea is that what a bypass valve does is it's a spring-loaded valve that when the pressure reaches above a certain amount, that bypass valve will open and allow the high pressure fluid to bleed off and go back to the reservoir. And the reason why you want that is so that the gear-driven pump is not deadheading. Deadheading is the term used when you have a pump that's pumping to a location that the fluid has no place to go. So if you had a pipe and you were pumping fluid down that pipe and you had a valve on the end and you shut that valve and the pump just kept trying to pump, eventually it could damage the pump. So typically there's some sort of a bypass. Well, when I trace this system here, I've got 4 connections going up to the steering valve. These 4 lines right here. 2 of the lines go directly to the reservoir / pump assembly, and the other 2 lines go directly to the power steering cylinder and rack assembly up in the front there. So my suspicion is that either in the front cylinder assembly or in the pump assembly here that there's some sort of a bypass valve built into it. That may very well be what this steel line is right here. This steel line looks like it's returning right back into the reservoir, and it comes from on the top of the steering valve. So my suspicion is that that's the bypass valve. And again, the importance of that is, say you turn the steering wheel all the way over to the left or the right and you reach that mechanical limit where it can't go any further, well, all that pump pressure is going to build up, and if it reaches some point, you want a way for it to be able to travel back to the reservoir instead of possibly damaging something in the mechanisms or the pump itself or whatever. So enough about that. So I took this line off, I drained as much fluid as I could out. I took this line off, nothing drained out. The reservoir is pretty low already, or almost empty. I just recently put that filter in, so the filter's pretty new. So I'm thinking I might not bother changing that filter again. Although that fluid, I don't know, it might be saturated with contaminated fluid. You know, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. So I'm a little annoyed because Aiden's got nothing else to do, and I just saw him at the house. I told him what I was doing. I told him he could help me, and last time I checked, he was just sitting there vegetating. So he's just going to sit there and do absolutely nothing, twiddling his thumbs, picking his nose, or whatever. So, typical teenager, 17 years old, don't need to help anybody. Of course, Dad spent several hours putting his car back together and putting a new radiator in it for him after he drove it off the road into a ditch. All right, but I digress. All right, so I traced which line is which, so we're going to do this one first. So I got the camera on there. Let's see what comes out. Now, if money were no object, I would flush that out with clean fluid until, clean fluid came out. But not doing that. All right, here's the cylinder feed line on the other side. That seems pretty empty too. In case you're wondering what I need Aiden's help for, was I was just going to have him hold this bucket up so that, you know, when the stuff sprays out, if a lot of it comes out, it won't go all over the place. But I'll just try and hang it up here like this, and hopefully that'll work out. Hopefully this is as helpful as a 17-year-old kid. Oh, freestyle. And we got one left. What if that'll stay like that, huh? Running out of air. Well, that didn't take much. I'm gonna rig something up so I can crank the engine over and turn that hydraulic pump and pump some fluid slowly. I got a button. Drop that over on that side where I want to be. I got a 1/4-inch spade lug. Connector right on the solenoid. Now I just got to feed 12 volts to it right on the battery. That ought to do it. Now I'll make sure we're in neutral. Believe so. My bucket ready. I don't know how much fluid's going to come out. All right, so it looks like the discharge is on the bottom. Actually thought it was going to be on the top. Just double check and make sure that fuel shutdown lever is in the off position, because it almost sounded like it was going to start, but it's not. That's like all the fluid that I poured in there and whatever else was in there. Still coming out a little pink. I'd like it to be coming out a lot cleaner, but see what else I got left in this bottle. I think whatever I poured in there just mixed with what was left in the reservoir, so this should be more just pure fluid now. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go get another bottle. All right, it's all topped off. Yeah, it's looking better. Less pink and more cherry red. Yep, I'm happy with that right there. That's a color I can get behind. Alright, now I can flush that line. I've repositioned my remote starter button up top here so I can have this container on here and crank this. Good enough. I'm going to temporarily place the valve in position and connect that line up. Oh, I really wish I had some electricity over here so I could bring my shop vac over, because there's a mouse nest under here. It's a mouse nest soaked with hydraulic fluid that has leaked. It's nasty. I only got this one line attached. I think I'm going to take it off, get the valve out of the way, and take care of this, clean up this nest, and be a lot easier with the valve out. I wonder why the leaking fluid was coming out in kind of a weird way. It had to filter through a ton of mouse garbage. Oh, ow, ow. Oh, a heavy little valve. Okay. I don't know what's worse, the gooey part of it or the dry part. I don't really care as long as I don't hit the alive part. Oh. I'm down into a section that's practically like mud. That's how gooey it is. The only way to really clean this is to pressure wash it. Of course, I didn't bring a rag out here. Switching hands so I can get a different angle and get into some of the crevices that I couldn't reach from this angle. I'm sure this is fascinating video. I mean, this is far from clean, but at least now I could feel that I've opened up some of the holes in the bottom of this bracket, which is where any leaks, if they develop, the fluid can run out of a little bit more quickly. So you can be aware of a leak before it, a little quick, never mind. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. I'm saying I'm done with this for now. I went back to the house and washed my hands so I could touch the camera. That's some good stuff there. I'm gonna have to get a brush. But my cuticles are all black. I look like I'm goth or something. All right, so now I've hooked up the third line down, which is the one that goes back to the top of the reservoir. So I believe that's the return line. Now, I think, if I'm correct, theoretically, if I'm not turning the steering wheel or the input shaft, that no fluid should flow out of either of the two ports that are attached, that the lines would send fluid to the front steering cylinder. At least that's what I'm hoping. But we'll just crank it slow, and if it starts pumping fluid out of those other ports, then I'll know, well, I can't do that. But if I can, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pump it and hope that fluid just returns, goes through the valve and returns and flushes this line that I still have disconnected from the top of the reservoir. In other words, this line right here is what I want to clean now. I hope. All right, so now I can crank it, and I'm watching for fluid. Well, I know fluid's going to return there. Well, at least I think so. I want to make sure fluid doesn't come out up here. Nope, fluid's coming out of one of the two cylinder lines. So I guess that's the one I got to flush next. Oops. Yeah, sure, now it's coming out of there. That dirty stinker. Not a lot. Maybe I emptied the reservoir already. Yep, actually that's what that was. I bet you it's going to try and throw fluid out of that line too at the same time. Alright, that'll cover my bases for now. Oh, I forgot to hit record, but I just ran it. Very little fluid comes out of that line, which is what I would expect because I'm not turning the steering valve. And I waited until I got really good flow out of here and flushed that line. Now that this line's flushed, I'm going to reattach it to the reservoir. Reservoir. That's how the French say it. I mean, I think. I don't know. I'm not French, so just like saying it that way. Okay. Getting close. I can feel it. All right, for this next trick, Mark's going to come out here in a couple of minutes and help me because I can't be in two places at once. I'm going to be up there, and what I'm going to do is, while cranking it, I'm going to turn the steering valve and see which one of these has fluid start coming out of it. And then I'll make sure the big bucket's underneath that, we'll flush that, and then I'll switch them and I'll put it, the other way. I'll rotate the valve the other way and flush the other line, and then we should be done. Mark seems to be delayed. I tell you what, I'll put the camera on this side, and you guys shout when you see fluid. Oh wait, I guess that won't work, huh? Well, while we're waiting, let me tell you a quick story. So last night, I did something I haven't done in a long time. I went to a casino. I went to the Indian casino down in Ledyard, Connecticut, called Foxwoods. And the reason why I went there was because my wife had gotten me tickets at Christmas time for Jim Gaffigan, the stand-up comedian. So those of you who do not know Jim Gaffigan, he is a pretty funny guy. So you might want to check him out. And I was concerned because I've seen a lot of his material on online and some of his shows on HBO and stuff. And I was concerned that I might see some repeat stuff, but it was all new material, and he was hilarious. And I capped off the night by overpaying for a cheeseburger. I can't believe how expensive food has gotten in a casino. I remember when casinos used to practically give you the food for free just to get you in there to gamble. Not anymore. All right, here comes my assistant now. I had to tell a boring story just to kill time. All right, so here's the plan.
How do you have it over there?
How do I have it over here?
Yeah, it's not plugged into anything.
I filled it with air.
Oh.
I put it in a wagon. Can we please move on to the more important thing?
Right,
Okay.
Volume on.
Do not step in that.
Looks tasty.
Yeah, doesn't it? Nothing?
Nothing.
All right, I put more fluid in here. Maybe it ran down. Yeah, all right, I could add more fluid. That's weird. Maybe I have to be turning the valve more when I'm doing this. I don't know. I'm tempted to start it.
Why?
Well, because then the engine will turn that over instead of just the starter.
Well, we don't have the throttle control.
Yeah, but the throttle is...
It's on this side.
Huh?
It's on this side.
That's the shut-off.
Oh.
That's what's keeping it from starting right now. You flip this lever here, I crank it, it's going to start up. Well, unless there's a problem with the fuel system again. Alright, so we're going to plan B this. We're going to try and start it. So here's what I need you to do.
Mm-hmm.
You stand on this side.
Mm-hmm.
If you start seeing it shoot fluid in there fast, you tell me and I'll shut it down. Okay?
Alright.
So I just can't see. On this side I can see.
Okay.
Alright, ready?
Yeah.
Alright. Don't freak out, it might start. Burning like a kitten. Okay. I gotta add more fluid. I can hear it doesn't sound happy.
What is this?
Alright, so I got the other line flushed and hooked up. So we're just gonna flush some out of this side. And then we should be done.
Should be. Now we just have to wait for a steering wheel.
Well, actually I'm waiting for a couple of clips to put the steering column in. Or whatever, who cares? Yeah, I think so. I don't know how to bleed the system on this. Somewhere in the manual that I have, there's probably instructions on how to bleed the air out of the system. But
How many people are going to comment saying you're doing it wrong?
how many?
Yeah.
I don't know. By the time this thing airs, I will have figured it out. I know that. I'm way behind on editing. This is what? This is Easter. Easter's tomorrow.
Yeah.
So this is April 16th today.
Yeah.
And I bet you this will air.
In December.
Well, not that bad. June. I accidentally deleted a video clip, so that's going to help. That's some video I'm not going to be able to show.
You need me here now?
No, actually, I guess I'm all set with you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Welcome.
This fitting is a little tricky to get to. All right, I think that's all the lines tightened, so the big question is, am I going to be able to actually make those wheels move now, left and right? Because, you know, there's a lot of air in that system. I don't have a steering wheel, so I can't like spin the wheel nice and quickly. I gotta basically, I'm sticking this in the hole on the shaft there and just turning it. If I could just make them creep a little bit, that would make me happy. Nothing. It does get hard to turn though. I guess all else fails, read the instructions. There must be something in the manual about bleeding the air out of the system. I'm assuming that's what's going on here, that I'm airlocked. At least I hope that's what's going on. I gotta run back to the house and get the manual, take a look at it. Keep an eye on my camera for me, okay? Well, that's disconcerting. The owner's manual just talks about, you know, if the fluid level's low, to top it off, and then it just says to turn the wheel lock to lock several times to purge any air out of the system. That's it. I think what I might do is just keep trying that and seeing what happens, see if it starts to move, and then as I'm doing it, I'll periodically check the level in the reservoir and see if it's going down. So if the reservoir level is going down and I don't have any leaks, then that would indicate it's displacing air with fluid, which is a good sign. That's the ticket. I just didn't have enough patience. It's starting to move. Yeah, and that fluid level drops down pretty quick, so. All right, I need to go get more fluid. That's much better. All right, it's going to be raining real soon, so I'm going to pick up my tools and I'm going to call it a day. Once I get the steering column all put back together and a steering wheel on there, it'll be real easy for me to just turn it lock to lock several times and top off the fluid one more time, and I think we're going to be all set as far as the power steering goes. I'm happy to report that my rebuilt valve up there has no signs of any leakage coming out of it, so not bad for a half-assed mechanic. But I am noticing that now when I look in the reservoir, it is Pepto-Bismol pink again. So I'm thinking that entrained air in the system may be causing that. I'm hoping that's all that is, and that will work its way out. Either that, or it was the volume of fluid in the two cylinders here in this steering unit in the front that has now mixed in and contaminated everything else. But I mean, I don't know. I'm considering how I flush all the lines and everything, I'm kind of surprised. But then again, in other words, I'm wishing it didn't look like that. But hey, at this point, I'm just glad it's not leaking out all over the ground.